Welcome to Beyond Profile. Today is August 30th, and we are just about done with another month of trading. Yesterday we broke out actually of our stage 3 on our daily time frame. We actually took out the prior pivot highs on the S&P market here at 1207 level. You can see we actually had a gap up, and we also had this gap down. Some would say that the gap was closed, others would say that the gap was not closed from last Thursday. It came very close to actually getting the gap closed. We'll look at the NASDAQ in a moment here, where that one clearly is still left open, which would create some sort of a island bottom reversal, if you will. But let's talk about the S&P here. We broke out stage 3, took out the prior pivot highs. Now the question becomes for us today, and what's going to need to happen here is if this is a true going into a stage 4 here, we want to see follow through. There's a few minor areas on the top side here. Obviously the first one would be the naked point of control at 23s there, and then the next one would be up here at the 1250 level. Remember, this is stage 3, and where we're residing at is at the unfair high of this prior balance here. We could draw an ellipse around it. This is balanced trade. You have unfair highs at the top here, and you have the unfair lows where we bounce from. This is a market that is auctioning back and forth within a balance area. When it gets down to the unfair lows, we find buyers. When we find to an unfair high, we get supply coming into the system. And what's happened is that we've been in this thing for the whole month pretty much of August, and now as we're getting at the end of the month, we're starting to push on the top side of this again. So what has to happen here in the next day or so is one of two things. Either we get the continuation, this, or this fails yesterday's bar and we pull back inside of the balance area and continuing the auctioning process. Now we've talked about this all month, that this is actually fairly wide. It's nearly over 100 points in the ES market here for this balance area that we've been trading. With the volatility, of course, the way that it has been, is giving us a lot of opportunity during the day, versus when you look at something like up here back in July when we had this balance area of, like, let's say 1300s to 1350s, 50-point range, if you will, balance area, lower highs. It doesn't have the volatility up here that we've seen, down in this area. So this stage 3 here on the daily, like I said, either continuation, we need to see follow through, so this can go into a stage 4, which means rebalancing the inefficiencies of the original vertical move down, or if this fails on this breakout above this prior pivot high, I would be looking at new lows underneath these prior pivot lows in this market at that point, because what that would tell us then is that we have a pro failure outside of the prior mature balance area with no follow through, looking at it to auction back down through the range and take out the prior pivot lows that we had seen on about 1097, 1098 area on the ES market. All right, so looking at the next day or so here is going to be crucial as to where do we go from here. Do we get follow through, or is it rejected just like in any stage 3 and there's no follow through to the break of going into stage 4, and we go right back through? And at that point, then I will be looking for new lows in this market. If in fact this does fail to the top side, it could run actually one more day. I wouldn't discount if it had gone to 23s or so, and then immediately comes back inside of the prior balance area, and we go into back into the stage 3, and then at that point we go out the other side. Another way to look at this is when you're auctioning in a range like this, I like to sometimes put a rectangle around the box. This is our value area, if you will. This is the sandbox that the market is trying to play in. Everybody's happy. There's enough liquidity to meet the needs of both sides of the marketplace when we're in this sort of an auctioning process, and we're building a mature profile that, again, we know that will ignite some sort of a move in one direction or another, and I'm happy to play it in either direction. I'm not biased either up or down once we break out, but as long as we're in our stage 3, we'll continue to play it as such. And yesterday, if you remember right, going into the close, we wanted to look at being possible sellers, and you can see from the 1208 level we're down here now 1201. So we're going to actually be gapping. If we hold here before we get to the open, we'll actually be gapping back inside of those prior pivot highs, which 1206. So we have, even in a very small time frame, the first few hours of the morning here, we've already got a market that doesn't seem like it wants to hold outside of it. So like I said, this would trap a bunch of longs, and at that point we would actually look for this market to auction back through this range, and then actually go out the other side of it and make new lows underneath that prior 1097. All right. So that's the update for this morning. We'll watch closely here. As I said, they've got weakness already this morning. Keep in mind too, you did have this gap up. So first time into this gap fill area, which is at 1175 or so. One of the other things actually maybe is to trap both market participants here, the longs and the shorts. If we come back into gap fill here, and then this market just does one of these, a sideways area above the 1175, all right, we could see this actually break from that level too. So in the days to come, just keep your powder dry. Trade the edges if you will. The shorts at 1208 was the place to be, playing the short edge because you're on the unfair high territory here of this prior balance area, and then look to see where it goes this morning. We had 1194 yesterday as our high volume area during the trading session, so that would be one of the main reference points coming back down in this market this morning. Have a great trading day, everyone, and we'll see you in the room.